The game that's being played, and it's been played for a long time, is manufacturing your consent for what's going on. The systematic destruction of your freedoms, the consent to rob you of the value of your money in your pocket. And the whole point of the cryptocurrency industry is to liberate all of us from that, to say we don't need middlemen to control our money. We can have different ways of reaching consensus and consent to vote on things. We don't need to have some government actor basically tell us how to live our lives. It's a liberation of where we were at in the 20th century. So it's a reevaluation of philosophy. It's a reevaluation of how much privacy are you entitled to. It's a reevaluation of where your rights come from. And also, we live in a global economy. Guys, I'm in 40 different political systems as the CEO of Input Output Global. We truly are a global company. I have to care just as much about Greek politics as I do Japanese, as I do American politics. I'm the least partisan person you can imagine in that respect. And we have to deal with all kinds of people, from people who are president for life in countries in Africa to people like in Switzerland, where they don't even have a president. They have a first among equals committee. You see, so I have to live in all these different systems, and I've learned a lot from all these different systems of different ways of doing things. The point, though, is that what's happening, if you look at people right now, what they feel is not their own feeling for the most part, whether you're Republican, Democrat, whatever you are on the political spectrum. The anger, the passion, the indignity is manufactured. For example, this Trump killed 100,000 people. Do we honestly believe that? H1N1 in 2009, the swine flu, 12,000 Americans died. So apparently if someone else was in Team Blue, they could wave a magic wand and those people wouldn't die. It's a flu. It's a pandemic. It's a virus. It kills people. It doesn't matter who's in charge. And what? You want the president to be so powerful they can arbitrarily shut all the states down? So the 10th Amendment applies. You can't reopen the states, but you can close them unilaterally. There's no consistency here. Why? Because that message is necessary for a team to take power. So people feel it. They say it. On my own Twitter feed, they say it. See, I'm not carrying water for any particular politician here, but I can see the symptoms and signs of propaganda. There are a lot of people in America who moved from the Soviet Union after it collapsed to the United States. And they can back me up on this. They definitely can see it. I talked to people who lived in Ukraine during the Chernobyl incident, and they saw the stark contrast between the reality that they saw and the reality that was presented to them. This is where we live right now. There's no consistency. It's all hypocrisy. Truth is relative because it's about power. It's about manufacturing consent. The point of our industry is to trust you enough so that we can give you your power back. And these tools only work if you know how to use them. These tools only work if you can think for yourself and you have critical thinking capabilities and you can recognize when the feelings within you are actually coming from things you've thought about versus someone handed it to you to get angry about. So this is why I always wade into the swamp from time to time, usually when I see hypocrisy. I have a very personal relationship with states' rights. It was something that we talked a lot about in 2007 in the Ron Paul campaign. Now, wherever you sit on that, the other side of the argument called us racist for this, resurrecting the Jim Crow South. And we said, look, the federal government is not supreme. It shouldn't control everything. And the position of the left was strong central government. And if we allow the states to do their own things, they'll become tyranny and kill all the minorities. This is what they said to us. They wrote articles in the Atlantic and other things about it. Then when Trump tries to reopen the states, everybody on the left goes to states' rights. It says 10th Amendment. It was unbelievable to me. How can you have both positions? You can't, because it's not about what's actually going on. It's about manufacturing consent to oppose whoever happens to be in power and remove that person. It works on both sides. The birtherism, we care about the debt on the Republican side. They don't. We're $25 trillion in national debt. I remember the Tea Party, years and years and years. We will get the deficit down. We will get the debt down. Now where are we at? We're larger than we've ever been. When Bill Clinton left office, $4 trillion. Now we're 20 years later. It's laughable. It's absolutely laughable because it's not about the truth. Okay. So yes, we wade into this because we actually have to make decisions. Like, for example, when we build our voting system, what is a fair voting system? I can't just say, well, let the market decide. As a system architect, I have to think about it and make decisions about it. Where do you draw analogy from? You look at failures and successes. You look across all the political systems throughout the world and you say, which ones seem to be doing a decent job? Where are people feeling like they actually have a real voice and people actually solving problems without descending into propaganda, partisanship, and petty base differences? But you see, that voting system we construct may end up having control over the largest pool of capital in the world, hundreds of billions to trillions of dollars of spending power if we build these systems right. Look at how valuable the internet's become. Imagine if that had a voting system. And don't you think that then that becomes a political animal unto itself and will start corroding and changing the things around it and forcing them to acquiesce to that? So the decisions we make here will have impact there. If a government comes to me, and some have, and said, we would like to talk about voter registration, the decisions we make ultimately will then decide who gets to be leaders of their country. The same for property rights, the same for privacy in these things. So it's fucking laughable when people say, stick to Cardano, stay out of politics. We are in politics together, all of us, and we're all first among equals, okay? There's no difference here. And the only decision we have to make in the 21st century is, do we want to hand what remains of our liberty, our freedoms, and our autonomy as human beings to a uncompromising, faceless bureaucracy that doesn't give a fucking shit about you and would sooner see you die than them being inconvenienced? And we have evidence of that because 5 million people are going to starve to death because of this pandemic, and no one cares. We're destroying food in the United States. Or do you want to take care of yourself? That's the decision here. And these tools that we're constructing will allow you to do that. So I'm going to continue wading into that swamp from time to time. Believe me, it's not partisanship. I could not care less who ends up being the president because it just doesn't matter. I have no voice. My vote doesn't count. You don't have a voice for the most part. Your vote doesn't count unless you happen to be so lucky to be in one of those small areas where things tend to swing one way or the other way. But for the most part, there are teams and people just get angry at each other, hate each other, and divide each other up. You know, and you can't protest. You can't change it through the ballot box. The only way we're going to win is economically. It's the money. If we can get that back, then we're back. We actually have a voice again, and we can use that collective wealth to be able to steer the corporations and steer the world arc towards something better. That's the point of our space. That's what always has been the point of our space. So think for yourself. And before you send an angry tweet or believe that a person happens to be on a different team than you, whatever that team might be, think really, are those feelings in you your own? Or maybe you got them from somewhere else. And is this person so much different from you? Does this person really look at the world so much differently from you? Are this person's values so corrupted that they honestly want to do you harm, your family harm, or don't care about your reality, don't care about how you live? And if you can't definitively answer those questions, back off for a little bit and realize that perhaps we aren't all perfect and our ideas perhaps aren't our own. So crypto and politics, married forever, and that's a good thing. Get your power back. Think for yourself.